Hey friends out there, welcome to Robbins Works, brought to you by the Robbins Regional Chamber in partnership with Spherion Staffing. I'm April Bragg with the Chamber, and I'm excited to share Robbins Works with all of you joining us for this timely discussion. So we actually started our Robbins Works efforts nearly a year ago as a way to get timely, relevant, and practical business resources for you. It's about business leaders sharing real-world solutions to common challenges. Since then, we have streamlined our focus around one of the most pressing issues in the business community, workforce. Robbins Works is all about connecting employers and job seekers, sharing industry trends, and providing engagement opportunities through our exclusive Facebook group, also called Robbins Works, as well as digital and print resources and interactive virtual programming like you're experiencing today. We are excited to host my good friends, Michael Chalmers and Nicole Crawford with Spherion, Middle Georgia, live on Facebook and YouTube. They will discuss how unemployment benefits have impacted industry and how businesses have handled and continue to handle this challenge. We'll uncover the top 10 challenges for business leaders embracing and adapting to constant change, and we'll highlight real-time best practices in employment recruitment and retention. Michael and Nicole will also take your questions. So if you will, drop us a line, let us know that you're watching, what company you represent, or who you might be with, or your industry sector. And then as the program goes on today, throw your comments in there or questions, and we'll be sure to incorporate those near the end of the program. Now, for those watching live, we are so thankful to have you with us, and you can come back and watch this for future viewing. The replay will be available through this same link for you to watch or to share with your colleagues and friends. It is now my pleasure to welcome our presenters today, and I'm going to turn things over to Michael for some quick introductions before we dive into our discussion questions. Michael, Nicole, thank you guys for joining us today.
Hey, April. So good to be with you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited about what April's vision has been for Robbins Works, and we are certainly happy to play a part in it and understand right now the challenging environment that all of us are in from a business perspective when it comes to employment coming out of the pandemic. And for those of you that I haven't had an opportunity to meet, Michael Chalmers, I'm the owner of Spherion Staffing in Middle Georgia, and Nicole Crawford is our vice president in the market, and we look forward to sharing with you some insights and information today. Nicole, anything you'd like to add before we kind of get started?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited that we are part of this discussion, and we look forward to listening and taking your questions.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump right in. You know, this has been, gosh, I know, Michael, you and I were talking about this the other day, just such an unusual place for us to be, right? Normally, we've got, lots of more people looking for work than we've got jobs to fill, and the tables have kind of turned on us. But I know when we were talking just before we went live, you actually have the latest job report numbers hot off the press. Why don't we just start there to kind of give some perspective and framework for our discussion today?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So, tomorrow they'll announce the non-farm payroll report. That'll come out in the morning. But we already have some leading data from some of the reports that have come out, which is really going to be some interesting stuff. We created, it looks like, about 750,000 jobs in April. If you compare that to maybe what was done in March, March was like maybe 550, 560,000. So it's been a huge increase. Almost, a 33% increase between March to April. And probably everybody's feeling that too, right? I mean, we drive around all the time. Is there anybody in town that doesn't happen to have a now hiring sign, in front of their business? I mean, we're all in that situation. And so certainly we see that from that particular perspective. What's interesting is typically the services industry will lead job creation. And I'm going to just tell you a couple of things I found very, very interesting out of this particular report. And indeed, they did again, right? So about probably 636 of those 750,000 jobs that we're talking about were created through the services industry. So, think of any type of service. It's not just hospitality. Hospitality did lead it, though, I will tell you that. And if you're in restaurant, you're in hospitality, you're in banquet serving, whatever that may be, hotel, you are probably pressed right now, and it's very hard for you to do that. Manufacturing led right behind that, and I know that most of our manufacturers are also having the same situation, in finding, attracting talent and then retaining that talent. We'll talk a little bit about the retention piece maybe toward the end of the call. But here's what I found the most interesting. Of those 750 or so thousand jobs that were created, 277,000 or so were created by big employer. So more than 500 employees type, what the government would consider big employment. Following that was small business. 235,000 of those jobs were created by employers who have less than 50 employees, and then medium-sized businesses, which have between 50 and 500, filled in the rest of that gap. So that was really, really interesting what a major part small business right now is playing in job creation. And so there's some pretty good statistics, and I'm sure that there's some folks out there who are feeling that right now, as most of them.
100%. And I do want to pause real quick and just remind people, because I know so many of you, as Michael pointed out, do have, help wanted signs. You're hiring actively. We've got signs available here at the Chamber, no cost to you. We've also partnered with all of our local financial institutions to make those available in their lobbies. Simply reminding people, that to be kind to the staff that did show up, but also promoting that Robbins Works portal, again, for job seekers and employers to connect. So we've got those if you'd like to hang those in your business. So let's dive right into some of the questions that I know are already on the hearts and minds of business owners and HR managers and leaders in our community. So it's no secret that business took a big hit during the peak of the pandemic. If possible, can you give us, and I know we jokingly said top 10, but can you provide for us kind of your top challenges, and we all know what number one is, that business leaders have faced or are facing so far in 2021?
Yeah, Nicole, you want me to take that, and then maybe you can add a little something to it. I'll talk maybe broadly about it, right? Because we do a lot of data research at Spherion, and we produce an emerging workforce study every year. Many people may have seen us do that. We periodically will do it in the community. And then I'll talk a little bit high level, and then maybe Nicole can add in some color about some local challenges we're after. But, obviously, I think coming into 2021, most likely the biggest thing that we're hearing in companies were concerned about was really the overall economic condition, right? We're still in the middle of COVID in some ways. It's still out there. We're still challenged with it. We're in the state of Georgia, which, you applaud the fact that they did their best to stay open, which is really some of the challenges we're having today, right? There are some other states that aren't having nearly the challenges we are having. They're having a higher unemployment because they did not open as quickly as we did. But there's economic and I think governmental challenges, right? A new election, a new administration. What are those changes going to bring? How is that going to impact business? Those are certainly some of the challenges. Availability of people, that meet the skilled need in our that businesses are looking for. Obviously, I mentioned politics. I think that's certainly going to continue to play for a while. Rising cost, inflation. What are we looking at in the future of it, to be able to retain an employee? What are our medical benefits going to look like? What are our, all of those kinds of things are on top minds of folks. So, in competition, I talk to my team a lot. We all love each other, right? We all want the economy to do well. We want the Robbins region to be successful, but we're all in competition with each other right now for people. And so, in some ways that competition also plays into that factor. Wages play a lot into what businesses are considering right now. We've seen a lot of wage progression because of what's going on right now. businesses having to increase their pay and look at their internal budgets to determine how do I offer more potentially to be able to attract people into my business, and what does that do for us from a financial standpoint? I think that's obviously good for the employees, but it is somewhat challenging for the employers. And what's that going to do on the backside of inflation? I was watching a local national business channel just the other day, and they were rattling off the names of all of the large companies that you probably can think about that are now passing on significant price increases in the materials and the products that they sell, because their cost of business is starting to increase because of investments that they're having to make from that perspective. So, from a high level, I think that's probably the biggest challenges that businesses are looking at, and that we're all grappling with and trying to determine how do we put things in place. Nicole, I don't know if there's anything you want to add from a local perspective, specifically in the attraction and retention of people, but I'll let you speak on that a little bit too if you want to.
Certainly. Yes, Michael. And I think you really hit the nail on the head. I would have to take a wild guess and say that wage is probably the number one concern right now. Specifically to Middle Georgia, we have a lot of mom and pop type businesses or smaller businesses that are, that have employees with that 50 and under number. And they're trying to figure things out. So we have had a lot of conversations and presented a lot of data, which helps them to budget better and look at providing a wage increase. And their main concern is, how do I compete when my next door neighbor or the business across the street is paying $2 or $3 more in wage? And so, they're finding that people are quicker now to jump ship for the best next opportunity available. And even if it's 50 cents or $1 more, they're having a hard time retaining those employees because they are going across the street or next door across town for that 50 cents or $1 more.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Nicole, and that actually kind of tees us up nicely for the follow-up to that. And let's start specifically around that wage discussion, because I know that is that's a tough conversation to have and a tough topic to think about. As we know, many of these service industry businesses who, really just got the brunt of the economic impact of the power punch that 2020, issued all of us. So specifically around wage, and then perhaps let's take it a little broader to the other challenges. What are y'all seeing? How can we move past these challenges right now in this environment?
Oh, wow.
That's a loaded question.
Just, forget softball, right?
Sure, yeah.
That was 2019.
That was a fastball there, April. I think you have to in some ways be creative, right? I think we're all challenged in today's environment to think beyond what we've ever thought about. Someone referred the other day, not to be insensitive anyway, but that what we're going through right now is a new pandemic. Obviously, it's not a health challenge like we had, which means it's not as severe, from maybe what COVID was, but that the difficulty right now is really a pandemic for a lot of businesses.
It's crisis level for sure.
Being detrimental, right, to their. I mean,
right.
You hear of restaurants that can't operate, can't open their doors, they have to close. Restaurants that normally are open 24 hours a day are having to close for different shifts because they don't have enough people. I think creativity, is something you have to look at. Obviously, if you haven't increased your wage in some amount of time, you're probably a little bit behind the eight ball. And I think this strategy, what we're going through now, will also prepare businesses in the future to say, how do we budget appropriately to give raises periodically and let our people grow with the company. That may be something certainly that businesses are thinking about, but sometimes it doesn't all have to be in wage. A lot of this is attraction of talent. What kind of organization do you have? What sells people on working for you? right? Some people obviously want the money, but we all know that the money only goes so far. And if you're not enjoying what you do, been telling people my entire career, right? If you're not happy in the job that you're in, you need to leave and find something else, because you're going to do this for a very long time. And so while money is an initial attractor for people to say, hey, I'm making $12 an hour, I can go over here and make $14 an hour. What are you doing if you're that $12 an hour employee to make that employee go, I don't know that I want to jump for $2 an hour.
Yeah.
Right? The culture that is here, the people that are here, the things that they do for us that are here, the ways that the job that I have here, my potential for growth in this company long term is something else that is there. So I think those are some things people can think about, right? Think beyond the wage. I know the wage is kind of the first thing.
Yeah.
And in a lot of instances, it's what attracts people first. But write a good job ad. That's where it all starts with. Get creative in what you're in the job ad that you're going to write to attract somebody. Sell your company. We're having to sell why to work for our companies more today than we ever have, because that's a way that we can attract someone to be able to come to us. I think those are a couple things you can do. Obviously, if you can increase your pay, that's going to help to some degree. Maybe it's through wage, maybe it's through some other incentive program that you can come up with, or maybe it's something that you can do to be able to attract people in a different way. I will say the one thing that I would encourage businesses to be more about, we need more people, obviously, that's number one. But don't forget that if you put all of your focus on getting more people and you don't put focus on keeping the ones that you have,
right?
Yeah.
On a hamster wheel that you will never be able to get off, right? If 2 come in and 3 leave, you're no better than you were before the 2 came in.
Right. Or likely worse, frankly, because those 3 that left likely had institutional, knowledge that is very difficult to replace, certainly over a quick period of time. So how do businesses balance those competing priorities between recruitment of new talent to fill either new jobs or jobs that were vacated for various reasons over the last 12 plus months, as people had to return home because their kids were at home trying to go to school and figuring that out, and many haven't returned to the workforce or haven't come back for health reasons or other reasons. How do employers, what if employers are looking at the situation that they're in and they're short staffed and they've got a handful of good people they want to keep? What's your recommendation to that small business? How do they balance those competing priorities of recruitment and retention?
I would say it would need to start with employee engagement. How engaged and how embedded are you with your current staff? Are you family oriented? Is the culture of your business lining up with their needs? One thing that I seen last year is people were suddenly, made to work from home. So they had to go to that work from home mode very quickly. And a lot of those people had their kids learning from home. So they had to juggle a lot of things. And I was reading a report the other day, and it said that businesses now have to be more agile, and they have to cater more to the candidate. So candidates today, they're looking for that work-life balance. They're looking at that location. They're looking at that flexibility in the workplace, because now they're having to juggle different things. Their children may still be virtually learning and staying with grandma in the afternoon. Their circumstances have changed. So the average worker may be out there looking for something that can accommodate those needs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think those are some good points. I will also add to that, right? When you're thinking about, creating the right culture, thinking outside of the box and being creative is going to help you not only in the attraction of new talent, but in the retention of the talent you've got. I've had to challenge myself, right? We get a model, a business operating model that works, and we say, this is our model, right? Maybe our model is a 12-hour shift, 7 days a week. Maybe our model is 3 8-hour shifts, 7 days a week. maybe 12-hour shifts don't work anymore.
Right.
Or maybe they work to a point, but you're losing a big potential of people that might be an asset to your organization if you took your business and thought of it in a little bit of a different model.
Sure.
Can I have a shift that caters to a mom, right? Who
Right.
needs to be home by 3 p.m. in the afternoon and can't start working until 9 o'clock in the morning. Can I partner her with someone else, cover that full shift? We saw such a number of mothers who had to leave their work, leave their career during this pandemic to go home and care for their children who were maybe taking school online remotely and all of that. That's really created a kind of a gap in our employment. And how do we reach out to those individuals and bring them back in and allow them the opportunity to have some flexibility? I've been in business for a long time, and I have to think all the time about how do I look at my business in a different manner today than I looked at it before. I much prefer, right, everybody to work, Monday through Friday from X to X, and
In the office.
Yeah, in the office, right, where I can see them, and what does that look like? I mean, I've got probably 6 of my team members who don't even report to an office anymore.
Yeah.
We have some of our people in an office, but just because of the nature of our business. But I'll be honest with you, if you don't have to work in an office and you work for me right now, you can work from home. I got an employee today who flew to California to handle some family business. She's going to be in California for 2 weeks. She took a day off. She's working the other 9 out of that 2 weeks, but she's working from California.
Yeah.
And, you got to be able to prepare to do that. And I know if you're in the restaurant industry, if you're in the hotel industry, if you're in those industries, you're saying, yeah, Michael, that's more easier said than done.
Right. You can't cut grass from the couch.
Environment, right, that we're in. But what can you do, right? And I think it's looking at attracting, different pools of people. We just got, even when you think about it generationally, we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, right? People, before this all happened, we were talking about the work ethic, of people, and they just didn't have the same work ethic. Well, what happened is we got a younger generation, and I have one, right? And he saw dad and mom work their tail off, and he said, I ain't gonna do that. I mean, I'm gonna be there for my family, and I'm gonna do things differently. And I think in some ways we've raised a generation who may not want it the way that we did it.
Right.
And so that's where you get into gig work and you get into all of those types of things that were very popular before we entered into the pandemic. And those things haven't happened. I will tell you what else I don't think is going to go away. I think a lot of people are hanging their hat on September, thinking that once the $300 federal unemployment incentive goes away, that the skies will open and we'll have all of these people. I don't know. I think we will have a challenge in the employment industry, attracting and retaining talent for a couple of years. I think this is not going to be easily solvable. We will continue to battle through this on through 2022, just because of the nature of what we're doing and how some people have changed. I did read an article last week that said approximately 6 million people, were unemployed. They expected about half of those people to come back in the fourth quarter, but there's another 3 million that may not come back at all.
Yeah. Wow. So, we talk about the challenges, right, of the past year, but I will tell you, in my seat at the chamber, one of the things that I am still most inspired by is the innovation of our businesses. So whether it was taking their work remotely or figuring out shifts that worked in order to make things accessible, figuring out how to, very quickly move to delivery models, online ordering, contactless curbside, all of these different things. I think if we're able to apply some of those same principles and that same ingenuity into addressing the workforce challenges, instead of addressing them with the same mechanisms we always have, right? That we're going to see far greater yields on the back end. And, change is such a huge part of your industry in staffing. And we have learned over the last 18 months that you can just never get too comfortable. And I think for many of us, small business, large, and everything in between, up till 2019, we had gotten pretty comfortable, whether it was wage, benefits, shifts, the operating hours, the work in the office, all the things that had really defined and solidified our business culture. So I want to ask this question: how key is it for business owners to adapt to change? And what tips do you have for them when it comes to handling this? So let's talk about like some specific tips or best practices or things that you've seen that we can leave people inspired with.
I don't think it is if they change. I think you have to change first.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're in an environment now where you have to change, right? So change is inevitable. And if you're not changing, innovating, you're getting behind in April. To your point, there are a tremendous number of businesses in the community who have done some pretty amazing things. Their businesses up and running and support their customer base through the 2020 year. I alluded to a couple things earlier, I think, when I was talking about adapting to change and what you can offer as a business. But when you think about offering it, you think about your employee, and I'm speaking specifically from what you can offer your employees, right, as you adapt to change. So scheduling is important. I know we went to a tool a year or so ago that allowed employees to pick their own schedule. And they could, if they needed to be off on Thursday, then they took off on Thursday. And so we recruited more people than we needed, which I know is not easy to do today. But we recruited more people that you needed to cover all of the business that you had, and you gave the people an opportunity to pick and choose, right? It's that gig work mentality. Some people, like that. I think also when you think about adapting to change, it's creating, it's really looking at your culture and making sure that your culture will align not only with what you want it to be, especially small businesses. Often the culture is who the owner is, and he or she has established that culture, and everyone else is kind of bought into that. Looking outside and determining what are the things that I can do in my organization to differently now than I have done in the past that will allow me, to be able to have business continuity by having the number of people that I need to support the business that I have. And what do I need to change? I think I would encourage business leaders, not just owners, but any business leader, to take this opportunity to look at themselves and say, what do I need to change in my current makeup to make my organization more attractive to people, whether it's employees or whether it's customers? Have I done it the same way for so long that it has begun to be an impediment to people to do business with me, or an impediment for people to come and work for me? I would suggest that that's a good start. Nicole, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add into that as well.
The only thing I would add is to not to be so black and white. For so long we followed a process. It was in writing. This was the work model. This is the process that we followed. There's a lot of gray right now, and we have to be more willing to look at that gray. I've heard of some businesses. They have a do not return list, right? That may be something that they need to go back and revisit. Are those former employees, really a do not return employee? Can something that maybe happened in the past be looked at again, and maybe, things have changed, right? So I think we have to be more flexible with our mindset and get out of that black and white mentality and say, okay, where can we go back to the picture and paint a different picture going forward? Because another report I was reading is 80% of workers are more apt to change their career this coming up year than ever before.
Wow.
Because they have learned they have to reskill. So someone that may have been in hospitality for 20 plus years and has never done anything else may now be looking at something in the manufacturing sector. So, what skills can transfer where they can work in that type of environment. And those are things that employers need to look at, when they are reviewing a resume, what skills are transferable to make, to increase productivity on their end.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Nicole, there's, it's very interesting. If you look even at just the work of the chamber and what we've done in the last 12 months, probably half of what our team has worked on isn't on anybody's job description, right? Because it was work that didn't exist in a space that didn't exist in engagement platforms like this, as well as our Facebook groups and things like that didn't exist. And while we are eager and excited about returning to our in-person programming, this kind of stuff is here to stay. Now, I don't think we're going to be on Zoom meetings all day, every day, like we were during the stay-at-home order. But there's a lot to be said for the efficiencies that are realized in the virtual space. And so I want to shift gears for a second and talk about, you mentioned skills, and, so many times I know in HR, the focus has been on skill historically, but more and more shifting to those culture and fit models, because you can teach skill, right? And so I want to talk about emerging industries for job seekers to explore. And then I want us to close out today. We do have a couple of questions I want to hit on before we get, but I want us to talk through some things that I know Michael and Nicole, I've had independent conversations with you guys about some innovative things that we've seen either in recruitment or retention from companies to leave our business community with something to really chew on and marinate on and think about in their own organization. So focusing on the job seeker side for just a second, as we've seen this shift in workforce and the needs of tomorrow, what are some of those growing industries that you see that job seekers may want to start looking into that perhaps they hadn't given consideration to previously?
Nicole, you want to address that, or you want me to?
Well, I would say manufacturing is still at the very top. And we are starting to see hospitality come back around. Mm-hmm. And these different hospitality venues and businesses, they are getting very creative, and they too are having to hire differently. But, the whole country has not gotten completely back to work.
Right.
We still drive by car lots and we're not seeing many cars. That means that, the manufacturing company is not, 100% at capacity and working. We still see some businesses that do not have dine-in. It's all takeout or curbside or drive-through, right? Mm-hmm. I think, Michael, and correct me if I'm wrong, hospitality and manufacturing are up at the top. Yeah. What would you say?
They are, and there's other things, IT, I think, is growing, at a pretty good clip. Obviously, the IT sector saw some huge upswing in 2020, because what did we all do? We relied on our IT, right, to continue to do business in a lot of spaces. So from that perspective, that's another one that's going on as well. The service industries as a whole will continue to see a lot of growth, but that's because it was the hardest hit, I think. Right? Yeah. They were the ones who were hit the hardest, and as much as they would like to have been able to retain their teams and divert them in a different way, those of us who could send everybody home and work from home and all of that, we were able to fare a little bit better. But if you're a hotelier or you're a restaurant, you can't send everybody home, right? I mean, you have to lay people off, and then you have to get them back. So there's going to be a lot there. But I will tell you one thing, and this is my I'm not speaking in the comment that I'm about to make from anything I've read. This is just my observation of the community. We are beginning to see wage compression. And I think that's the one thing people have to look at. We were talking about wages earlier. We think about businesses that are out there who maybe have paid $17, $18 an hour, and they had always expected a higher caliber, different caliber, skilled workforce, right, to work for them.
Right.
They're seeing troubles. So what they're doing is they're digging deeper down into the pool to say, can I get that $11 an hour employee? Can I bring them on board? Can I give them the training that they need? Can I help them to be able to become that $17 an hour employee? And so that means those people are going away. So now that $11 hour an employee doesn't have those candidates anymore. So they're now digging deep to that $9 an hour employee and trying to bring them up. And so I think we're seeing wage compression. And I know that's going to be a hot button for a lot of people because there's a lot of talk about unemployment. What is the minimum wage and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm certain we're certainly not going to be here to get into that. But I will say what you are beginning to see is that compression, because now we're trying to raise people up into other opportunities because maybe the talent is not there. And businesses are starting to say, if I can get me a good person who has the necessary soft skill to be successful, I will work to train them on the hard skill that they need to be successful in.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, Michael, what would you say? I mean, especially in the industry sectors that we've talked about, the necessary soft skills, what today, kind of post-pandemic, if we can even say that yet, do you think that you would encourage job seekers to really highlight, because you can train for hard skills, but those soft skills for people who may be looking into a different industry than they have in the past because there's some new opportunities, what are those kind of must-haves that are important for them to augment and highlight when they're out there, promoting themselves for the positions they're seeking?
I don't know that it's changed from what it has ever been.
Okay.
Right? If you ask people, if you ask businesses, I want somebody who can show up. I want somebody to be here on time. I want somebody who's dressed appropriate for the job. I want somebody who's committed to working, right? I don't want somebody who comes in and check their cell phone every 15 minutes while they're on the job, right? I don't think any of those skills have changed, but I do think from an opportunity standpoint, the workforce has the opportunity to say, those are the things that I'm going to make sure that I brush up on, right? How do I make sure that I can be there and be accountable to my employer? And be willing to put my cell phone up for part of the day. But
it's attached, there's a magnetic force field here.
It's hard for me too. But truly, I think those are the things that people, continue to be at. How do you, I'll tell you, how do you act in the workplace, right? People get sometimes upset. Work can be stressful, right? How do you handle yourself in a stressful situation? How do you not smart off at a boss or a coworker or drama in the workplace? Those kinds of things, right? You just need to be thinking about those things, as you prepare, for a new role or an increased role or whatever you're looking for from the workforce perspective. Nicole may have more on that than I do, but those are just kind of my initial thoughts.
Okay.
I think I would add passion. Michael knows that's one of my favorite things I look for. But passion exudes out of you, and it can draw people in. And I was telling Michael earlier, I can train somebody all day long if they're passionate about their job.
Yeah.
But if you're not interested and I can tell you don't want to be here, I can't, we can't make you do that.
Yeah. Can't make you want to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I want to take a little bit of a turn, and this is I guess ancillary to the discussion that we're having, but our friend Jim Taylor has weighed in from YouTube, and you can't ignore Jim or he'll just keep asking questions. So Jim brings up a really important point that I think can't really be overstated here around supply chain. I know, obviously there are careers in supply chain. There are, as Nicole pointed out, a lot of our manufacturers and other producers of consumer goods, parts, and things that are not at full capacity or are having the same labor challenges that the rest of our small businesses are. How are you guys seeing supply chain kind of factor into this global discussion around workforce and the challenges presented in the business climate?
It's definitely a challenge. I was talking to a business leader the other day, and he was in the automotive sector, and here's the real thing. We created a global economy, right, when this happened, and regardless of where the United States is, we're still a global economy.
Sure.
So a lot of these products or things that we need to be able to build and make these products are coming from out of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has their own requirements because of COVID and their own limitations that they're putting on, and so it is certainly creating an environment that is inhibiting a lot of businesses to be as successful as they could be. Right? They see the opportunity, but they can't do anything with the opportunity because they don't have the product or certain, whatever it is that they have to be able to give to the community. Nicole mentioned the automobile car lots right now, right? I mean, everybody knows there's a chip issue right now in auto manufacturing, and those chip issues are not allowing the manufacturers to be able to build the cars that they need to make. So I don't know that I can answer the question to tell you what's going to solve that, but I do know that it is a very real problem as well, in addition to the labor shortage.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's just going to take time for us to get back, and because of what we created from a global perspective, while maybe us in Georgia, right, are open and have opportunity, we now see the impact that being global is having on us, because we have relied and continue to rely on industries, partners, business suppliers, others from across the United States, across the globe, who aren't in the same position we're in right now, and are unable to provide us, what we need to be able to be successful. We're awfully interconnected.
Yes. Indeed. I feel like Fiona in Shrek, the waiting, when it comes to supply chain. And I think for states that have been open like Georgia, we're going to be waiting for a while, or producing our own. So I think kind of the money question, Michael and Nicole, that everybody is anxious to hear your input on. And I know as a leader in this industry, y'all get to see firsthand some companies who are doing things really well, who are getting innovative, who are coming up with strategies for recruitment and retention and ways to keep their existing workforce just finishing shifts or staying on. So what are some of those best practices that you're seeing to get candidates through the door and ready to work right now, that those watching today can take home and adapt and figure out a way to perhaps make something similar work in their business?
I'll give a couple, and Nicole, then I'll let you answer that. Right. I would say number one, how difficult is it to get a job in your company? Right. Make it easier. If you have an all electronic process, right, make it easier for people. People get frustrated, right, at times with that. They can't get through. They can't get their resume, attached or whatever. And in the past, it's been, this is the way that we do it, right? You do it this way or you don't get a job. The other thing I would say is look at your policies. I've talked to a lot of companies who have said, Michael, we got a background policy. It goes back to 1984 that said we don't hire people who have a felon, who have a felony on their record, right? And by golly, we don't do that. But when we think about our organization, what keeps someone being effective in a role in our organization who might have a felony conviction? right? And so, you know, are we limiting ourselves because we aren't looking at the ability to see our business in a different light and say, can we do that? You know, can we look at what our current policies are on our books that maybe the handbook is so dusty, no one has brushed it off, right? But can we look at that and make a determination around those types of things?
Or even educational requirements, you know, the bachelor's degree or the high school diploma.
I've talked to a couple businesses, April, who said, you know what, we're not really sure why we say you have to have a high school diploma to work here.
Right.
It was just something somebody said way back in the, years.
It sounded good, and we used to be able to be picky.
You got to have a high school diploma. But we hire entry level individuals, and as long as they have some of the necessary soft skills that we need, we can teach them what to do, and maybe that's a candidate we can go after.
Right. Maybe
someone who does have, some sort of past misdemeanor felony conviction from that is not that could work for us, that we're just passing by because somewhere in a policy we said we're not going to ever hire someone in that perspective. I think those are some practices you can look at. It's competitive. We're in a competitive environment, as I said earlier. We're all in competition with each other. We all love each other. We all want everybody to be successful, but we are in competition with each other.
Yep.
So, and I know, Michael, you and I have talked, we've seen people hiring on the spot. And you've seen, I think we've both seen, and I know Nicole has as well, some interesting incentives that people are offering. Do y'all care to kind of share any of those? Because I don't know that we're necessarily advocating for anything as extreme as some of the things that we're seeing. I got one I'm going to pull in from Jim Taylor after y'all share some as well.
Oh, you want to give that a shot? I mean, I got a couple things I've heard. But
yeah, I've heard quite a few things. I mean, we've seen Michael. I'm probably going to steal this from you, but we've seen some restaurants giving away cars. Come to work and we'll give you a car. There's some parameters placed around that, but hey, you're talking about a $10, $15 an hour worker that could possibly get a new car by just applying and working for 30 days. Cash prizes, referral bonuses, TVs are always a nice gift. More benefits such as vacation and things like that on the back end. That looks appealing.
Yeah, Jim Taylor said a local sanitation company is offering $5,000 signing bonus.
Yeah, signing bonuses.
Yeah.
Right. Sign-on bonuses, right? That used to be for like the executive, right? We're going to have an organization, and they're going to get a bonus to sign on. And now we're looking at, the $10 an hour employee that if they'll work for 2 weeks, they're going to get a $500 bonus for being able to do that. So yeah, I mean, you're seeing all of that kind of stuff, and Nicole, and trips. I've seen some incentive trips, right? For us for so long, and we'll give you a trip somewhere. It's what moves the market. It's what moves the candidate pool that you're looking for. But I've seen stuff that I never thought I would ever see before. Expensive, right? I mean, when we think about that, a car. We were talking about that company that's giving away a car. I won't give away any secrets, but don't think that Spherion hadn't thought about that too. There's been some discussion. But yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting, and I think that's certainly the case. I will say this: I talked to a young man this week when you talked about getting people hiring on the spot, and he had just started with our company, and he was coming off of his shift, so I took a minute to talk to him and make sure he enjoyed it and everything was going well. And he said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'm really excited about this job." He said, I accepted your job on Friday. This was Monday. He said, "I accepted your job on Friday." He said, "Today I've gotten 4 telephone calls from other businesses offering me a job."
Wow.
So I will say some of the best recruiting practices is to find out how cumbersome your process is getting people through the door and taking those roadblocks and obstacles away, because really those roadblocks and obstacles were probably created to make someone's job a little easier, or to make the process a little different, or at some time in your organization it made sense to do that, people are going very, very quick. And you know, to that point, you got to be ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know, you know, some things that we're even hearing locally are $1 an hour bonuses. And this is for a local fast food franchise in the area that's offering $1 an hour bonus for every shift you complete, you know, up through, you know, so long in your employment, you know, and hiring on the spot. And Michael, you touched on something earlier that I think is easy for people to hear and think, oh, I mean, that's so basic about writing a great job description. But I think so many people now, because there is choice, right? There's everybody's hiring. So you've got a lot of choice out there, but really looking at the culture of your organization and what it needs to be now versus what it's always been. Because it really has shifted. And I think many of us, just because we were, you know, barely coming up for air in the last 18 months, probably have taken far too long before we've taken a hard look at some of our hiring practices and requirements and things like that. So just any final thoughts, hope, encouragement that you can leave our business owners with as we wrap up today's program?
I'll just give you one more piece that we didn't touch on, right? What does your social presence look like? Go out there and see what people are saying about you on Facebook and on, you know, Instagram and on Google and on all of those different channels, right? Because I can promise you that that's what employees are doing. Mm-hmm. And that young man who may have had 4 job offers was going to look and say, what's going to be the best fit for me? Right. And we all know, we all run business. I've got plenty of people who have, you know, not been happy with what they've received maybe from us, but and they've voiced that, you know, on social media. But what are you doing, right, to try to balance that? Because you're so, you know, even your social presence is so key today in retaining people. This too shall pass, right? We have weathered many challenges over the years, right? We all remember, you know, the Great Recession and all of those things that we had, right? And we've all after that and come out of that, right? But we've done that by being creative. We've done that by, in some ways, changing up our business model. We've done that by creating an organization where people want to work in and thrive, and providing the services to our customers better than the competition does. And that will never change. That will always be what makes business successful. And that hasn't changed even with this. And so I would just say, hey, you know, have faith, stay in there, stay in the fight, be creative, challenge yourself. I'm sure everybody that's watching this that's in a business leadership role, like myself, have to challenge themselves every single day. You got to just keep doing it.
And act quickly.
Yes. Sounds like, yes. Snag them up while you can. And I think that point is so important, Michael, about social media. And it's really not just social, but reputation management, you know, leaving reviews for every product, service, experience that they have on Google and Yelp and Facebook and every other outlet that they can put it out there. Not only take the, you know, the good with the bad, right? And learn from those things, but make sure that you're saving some of those good. So when you do have a bad experience, that you're being very proactive in protecting that reputation because your future employees are looking at that.
And April, this isn't a social media training, but
yeah, it's okay.
Respond to the bad.
Yes.
Respond to the bad.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to get bad reviews and people are going to say bad things about you. How you correct that problem is to address that in that political environment. I mean, in that social environment, in a very business professional way, right? To at least let the people who are reading that understand, hey, this company cared enough to try to address the problem.
Yep.
Too
People want to engage with people, not pages, and it is amazing and just such a breath of fresh air when you see someone first admit that there's an issue at all in the first place and take ownership for that, but then to be able to learn a little bit about the why, and it really does say a lot about their integrity, and I think goes a long way in their future prospects.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Michael and Nicole, thank you guys so much. It has been a pleasure spending the last hour with you. And thank you, Spherion Middle Georgia, for your continued support of Robin's Works. This is the first of many to come throughout the rest of this year. As we know, this, workforce challenges are going to continue to be in front of us. We'll approach different topics each month, and we would love for you to add in the comments what you'd like to hear us talk about next month. Thank you all so much for joining us for this installment of Robin's Works. The replay of today's presentation can be found through the same link you used to view later or share with a colleague. Tell your friends and be sure to tune in next time. We'll see you all soon.